Have you ever flown in an aircraft? If so, you might know how amazing the experience is. You might have experienced the same if you ever played a flight simulator game too. And are you guys aviation enthusiasts? If you are, then this is for you. Let's round up some major highlights of the 2022 aviation industry. Many aviation-related affairs took place in 2022. The flight industry was recuperating from the COVID-19 pandemic. Across all airline functions globally, there were 12 disastrous misfortunes resulting in 229 fatalities in 2022. The most lethal collision of this year was China Eastern Airlines Flight 5735, which collided on March 21st, massacring all 132 individuals on board. Airbus reserved 820 net orders in 2022 and bore 661 airliners for a year-end backlog of 7,239, while Boeing reserved 774 orders and begot 480 airliners for a backlog of 5,430. 1. The destruction of the dream. It may have been just a plane, and it may be reconstructed in the future, but the demolition of the Antonov An-225 Mriya in Ukraine by Russian forces was, by far, one of the most read reports this year. Mriya implies dream in Ukrainian. On February 27th, during the warfare at Antonov Airport near Kyiv, the Russian military destroyed the foremost Antonov An-225 to be ultimately built. This intent was as iconic as it gets. It was the world's most extensive airliner, which had 6 engines and was the most rotund airliner ever made with the enormous wingspan of any airliner in operating service. It had 124 logs. The Antonov An-225 Mriya was typically used to haul cargo, and its final commercial assignment was to collect nearly 90 tons of COVID-19 test equipment from Tianjin, China. After supplying the kit to Billund in Denmark, it landed at its base in the Antonov Airport. It never departed again. It is skeptical that Ukraine will be able to reconstruct the iconic aircraft. The repair could cost over $3 billion and over 5 years to construct such an iconic airliner. 2. Russia's invasion of Ukraine's impact on civil aviation. In February, the Russian government ventured martial aggression on neighboring Ukraine. The Ukrainian war has instantly impacted the world economy, including the civil aviation industry. There have been many consequences due to this affair. Foremost, Western nations and businesses have primarily cut ties with Russia, with aviation manufacturers such as Airbus and Boeing reporting that they will move on from Russian developments in March. The US, the European Union, Canada, and others shut their airspaces to Russian airliners and airlines. Shortly after, Russia avenged with the same standards, which affected the routes operated by particular airlines from both sides of this pristine Iron Curtain. We have seen some immunities throughout the year, especially for freight aircraft soaring from Russia to nations in the European Union. Finally, Russia's new solitariness has pushed the country to drive a new nationalization wave. This originally started with Russia proclaiming multiple contracted aircraft used by local airlines in what can only be expressed as a robbery. Russia is now looking to build the products it must work at home to have a civil aviation industry. It is still insecure how this will influence the development of future airliners such as the MC-21 and the SSJ-NEW, the most recent variant of the Sukhoi Superjet 100. 3. China introduces the C919. On December 9, 2022, COMAC, or China's Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, bore the world's foremost C919 aircraft, enrollment B919A. It was offered to China Eastern Airlines, the Shanghai-based transportation, now the liftoff customer of the type. The C919 is a slim body jet configured to contest with the Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus A320 Broods. This airliner can seat between 158 and 192 passengers and span 2,200 nautical miles. China Eastern Airlines' foremost jet has 164 seats in a 2-class cabin layout, including 8 business class seats and 156 economy class ones. Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China has received around 300 orders from carriers. This year, COMAC also heralded a new milestone. The Chinese establishment begot the first overseas ARJ-21 to Indonesia's Transnusa Airlines. This latest provincial aircraft can seat between 78 and 90 passengers and has a cruising range of 1,200 and 2,000 nautical miles. 4. JetBlue and Spirit's merger saga. In February, Frontier declared its intent to purchase Spirit in a deal valued at $2.9 billion. Frontier Airlines darted balance to acquire Spirit Airlines in an ultra-low-cost consolidation that would have swayed the United States aviation industry. JetBlue established a more beneficial offer that influenced Frontier's plans, inviting shareholders with an all-cash offer of $3.6 billion, ultimately forcing Frontier's administration to call off the joining on July 27th. JetBlue and Spirit declared a $3.8 billion coalition contract a day later. This melded airline would be the fifth largest in the United States and could potentially upend the domination of the Big Four carriers in the United States. The coalition is presently waiting for the mandated regulatory clearances. Spirit and JetBlue expect to finalize their regulatory procedure and close the trade no later than the first half of 2024. 5. The Overture Saga. This year has not been comfortable for Boom Supersonic, the organization behind the conceivably next supersonic passenger airliner, Overture. Despite the business revealing an order from American Airlines, the Overture agenda was highly blamed during the year. Rolls-Royce resigned from the program, leaving Boom solitary after 2 years of scrutinizing to a fix of a new engine OEM to hook the project. The British company, renowned for bearing power the Concorde, commented that after careful review, Rolls-Royce has determined that the retail aviation supersonic market is not presently an emphasis for them. In December, Boom Supersonic located a new engine designer. The firm plans to work with Florida Turbine Technologies, Standard Aero, and GE Additive, a division of GE Aerospace, to design the engines it requires for the Overture. Founder and CEO of Boom Supersonic, Blake Scholl, remarked on the alliance, expressing that designing a supersonic engine, particularly for Overture, proposes by far the best value offer for their clients. Through the Symphony agenda, they can deliver their patrons an economically and environmentally endurable supersonic aircraft, a hybrid impossible with the existing limitations of derivative engines and industry standards. Boom wants to roll out the foremost Overture in 2026 to initiate its test flight campaign in 2027. 6. Boeing is moving away from Chicago. This year, Boeing documented that it is shifting its bases away from Chicago to Virginia, with worries that the business might decrease its existence in the city. This conclusion will move the organization's offices to Arlington, bringing Boeing's corporate network into the same campus that hosts its defense security and space program, and closer to the Pentagon and the Federal Aviation Administration. As stated by Dave Calhoun, Boeing's CEO, the province creates strategic significance for its global bases, given its immediacy to its clients and stakeholders and its admission to world-class engineering and technological talent. 7. China Eastern Flight 5735 and other accidents. Unfortunately, there existed several flight misfortunes in 2022. None was more miserable and with a higher demise toll than China Eastern Airlines Flight 5735. This misfortune took place on March 21, 2022. The aircraft was a domestic service between Kunming and Jiangsu, and it was served on board a Boeing 737-800 enrollment B1791. There were 132 individuals on board. All of them parted in the crash. The authorized investigation is ongoing, although portrayals indicate that the nosedive may have been deliberate. It was the third deadliest air collision in China. On April 7th, a DHL Boeing 757-200 cargo plane touched down at San Jose International Airport, Costa Rica, and skidded on a crumpled left landing gear. The mishap was documented on camera. The aircraft busted into two pieces, forcing the airfield's closure for a few hours. However, there were no deaths due to this accident. On July 21st, Red Air Flight 203 between Santo Domingo and Miami had a gear collage and an ensuing conflagration after landing at runway 30 in the Miami International Airport. Momentarily after the aircraft came to a halt, a blaze erupted on the right wing. Fortunately, all 130 passengers and 10 crew fellows successfully vacated the plane, and only 4 passengers were registered to have sustained petty injuries. Eventually, on November 18th, an LATAM Peru Airbus A320neo was taking off from Lima International Airport when it crashed with a fire truck endeavoring to traverse the runway. The probe is ongoing, and there's still no assurance of who was at fault at the time of the mishap. However, 2 firefighters parted, 1 remained mutilated, and LATAM's plane was noted off. There were no deaths on board the airliner. A few weeks before, LATAM also had a freaky happening while soaring between Santiago de Chile and Asunción. The airliner experienced extreme weather and was laboriously damaged. 8. Goodbye to the Queen of the Skies. There was the end of an era. In December 2022, Boeing cruised off the 1,574th and last Boeing 747 airliner in its history. This aircraft, registered N863GT, will be given to Atlas Air, a U.S. freighter company. This aircraft has been endorsed to be given on February 2023, almost 52 years since the foremost Queen of the Skies was offered to the now-defunct Pan Am in January 1970. As per the data by CH Aviation, there are presently 362 active Boeing 747s worldwide, employed by 56 carriers. Throughout its 52-year chronology, 918 Queen of the Skies has been discarded or noted off for a myriad of reasons. What do you think is the major highlight story of the year 2022? Were these stories something that concerned you? If so, let us know what you think about these events, and if we missed any big events you have encountered. Until then, adios.